Jonathan Luna was a 36-year-old man from New York. He was born in the Bronx and surrounded by crime from a young age. But Jonathan didn't want this to be his future. Instead, he studied hard in hopes of creating a better future for himself. And his hard work paid off. He decided to pursue a career in law, and he managed to rise up the ranks and become an Assistant U.S. Attorney Federal Prosecutor. Although he was from New York, Jonathan was hired to work on some serious criminal cases in Baltimore. He also seemed to be happily married, and the couple had 2 children together. People that knew him described him as an incredibly kind person. I managed to find a website with people talking about their experiences dealing with him, and all of them were very positive. Even someone's brother who he prosecuted only had nice things to say about him, stating that he wanted to help his brother get back on the right tracks again. On the 3rd of December 2003 at 9:30 p.m, Jonathan left a voice message for an attorney that was working on the same case as him. He was prosecuting 2 suspected heroin dealers in Baltimore who had been shifting large quantities of the drug through a record label studio. One of the men was also charged for murder. Jonathan told him that he would fax over a plea agreement later on. But at 11 p.m, Jonathan was at home when he received a call, and he told his wife that he would have to return to the office to attend to some things. As far as I know, the information as to who called him is unavailable. Jonathan was known to be a very on the ball and a very experienced attorney. But in this case, people said that he seemed to be struggling a little bit, and that he didn't seem his usual self. He managed to finish up and write out one of the plea deals. But at around 11:38 p.m, he left the courthouse, leaving the other plea deal unfinished. And Jonathan didn't have very good vision, and he needed glasses to be able to drive. And when he left behind his glasses, laptop and phone. This will be the first of many strange things to happen in this case. So he left the courthouse and embarked on a very strange route through 4 states: Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, travelling a total of 200 miles. At around midnight, Jonathan's colleague was expecting to receive the fax plea agreement that he told him he would send, but it never arrived. There were quite a few tolls on this journey that Jonathan took. For the first few of the tolls, he used an electronic pass card. His debit card was then used at an ATM where he withdrew $200. After that, he used cash to pay for the tolls. He then got off at the Pennsylvania Turnpike in Lancaster County. Investigators said that there was a smudge of blood on his turnpike ticket. There wasn't a significant amount of blood, but it was still rather strange. Jonathan then packed up behind a warehouse at around 4:05 a.m. The exact details of what happened next are unknown. His body was discovered shortly after 5:30 a.m. by somebody who worked at the warehouse. The worker saw that a car was still running near a creek. He went over to investigate, and there he found Jonathan's lifeless body. He had been stabbed 36 times, but the cause of death was ruled as drowning. He was found face down in the stream, and the money that he had taken from the ATM was scattered all around him. The undertaker who prepared Jonathan's body for burial spoke of the wounds on his body. They said, "I have seen a lot of murders, but this was definitely the worst I've ever seen." There were stab wounds in the middle of his back and directly below the shoulder blades. They also said that it appeared that his fingers had been shredded. There were cuts between all of the fingers and on the front and the back of his hands, which indicated that he could have held his hands up in defense. She went on to say that in some places it seemed like he had been cut to the bone. Jonathan's neck had also been slashed open on his right side all the way around his throat. Most of the stab wounds were to his face, mouth and back. But not only that, his scrotum had also been slashed open. But it didn't appear to be a clean slash. It seemed like someone had hacked at it multiple times. They also added that he had lost a lot of blood. When the police arrived at the scene, they inspected the car that was still running. It had rolled into the creek, and inside the car they found blood that had been smeared all around. There was also a pool of blood in the back of the car's footwell. There were 3 coroners that assessed Jonathan's body. The first one ruled the death as a homicide, and the second one came to the same conclusion. But the FBI then asked them to rule it as a suicide, as they claimed that it was impossible for anyone to have been in the car with Jonathan that night. The third coroner was brought in, and they too concluded that this was most definitely a homicide. The murder weapon that was used was a penknife that actually belonged to Jonathan, but that knife was nowhere to be found during the initial search for clues. They found it 6 weeks later in the same spot where Jonathan was found dead. There has been no explanation as to what really happened to Jonathan that night. In 2004, the FBI released a statement saying that Jonathan was alone from the time he left the office until the time that his body was found. The FBI were pushing for suicide. But a strange part of Jonathan's case is that his acquaintances in the Justice Department were attempting to cover up the FBI's mishandling of a drug informant that was also taking part in criminal activities. This was a cover-up which Jonathan refused to cooperate with in the days before his death. The nature of Jonathan's wounds clearly suggests that he was killed by someone. I am of course no expert in forensics by any means, but surely this is just an obvious fact. In 2020, some of the official coroner reports and papers were discovered in the basement of the Lancaster County Government Center. These papers were not disclosed during the investigation, and strangely, the judge ordered for the records to be sealed. The FBI also reported that Jonathan was in around $25,000 in secret debt. They also exposed that he had posted an internet ad looking for sex, despite being married. These two things add to the theories that Jonathan might have ended his own life because of the debt, or that his wife found out about this internet advertisement and that she had a hand in his murder. Both are still pure speculation at this point. Another thing worth mentioning is that during a trial that Jonathan was working on, he presented some money as evidence, as it had been found in the house of the person being prosecuted. There were 3 stacks of cash brought into the courtroom, each containing around $38,000. This money was then put into an evidence locker, and Jonathan was one of the people who was responsible for the money. The money mysteriously vanished, which caused big problems between Jonathan and his boss. Jonathan was also due to be questioned about the missing money, but there were also other people who were responsible for handling the money. After his death, a lot of people came forward and said that Jonathan was not the kind of person to take the money. So what really could have happened here? Did he get caught cheating, and that led to him being killed? This could explain the strange genital mutilation. Or maybe the pressure of being in debt and losing all that money was just too much, and he really did kill himself. But then how can the stab wounds to the back be explained if that really was the case? And why did he kill himself in such a strange way and travel over 4 states just to do it? Did Jonathan have any enemies that could want him dead? This could be possible, as of course he was an attorney, and responsible for putting away many dangerous criminals. I'm sure he had a few people who probably wanted him dead. But what if he was killed because he refused to cooperate with the cover-up the FBI were attempting? Could this be why they exposed Jonathan's debt and his advert for sex in an attempt to take heat off themselves? Why would they want to push for a suicide ruling when this poor man had stab wounds to his back? It makes no sense at all to me. This case is perplexing to say the least, and in my opinion deserves a lot more attention. All we can do right now is speculate as to what really happened that night.